Have you ever wondered why almost every human being on Earth sleeps through the night in roughly the same way? It seems obvious. When the sun goes down, you sleep. When it rises, you wake up. But for most of human history, that wasn't how people slept at all. Imagine living in a small village nearly 700 years ago. The fire has burned low. Outside there are no streetlights, no cars, no glowing windows, only darkness stretching to the horizon. You lie down shortly after sunset and quickly fall asleep. A few hours later, you wake up. Not because of a nightmare, not because of noise, you simply wake up. And everyone else does too. For the next hour or two, the village quietly comes alive. Some people pray, some talk with neighbors, others tend the fire, mend clothing, or simply sit beneath the stars. Then, without anyone forcing it, they return to bed for what they called their second sleep. That forgotten routine may have been the natural way humans rested for thousands of years. Most people assume sleeping 8 uninterrupted hours is timeless. It isn't. The idea is surprisingly modern. For centuries, writers across Europe casually mentioned something called the first sleep. The phrase appears in diaries, medical books, court records, even famous literature. No one bothered explaining what it meant, because everyone already knew. First sleep, a period of quiet wakefulness, then second sleep. It was completely ordinary. The fascinating part is that historians overlooked these references for generations. People assumed first sleep was simply another way of saying early bedtime. Then historian Roger Ekirch noticed something remarkable. The phrase appeared hundreds of times across documents separated by centuries. It wasn't poetry. It wasn't metaphor. It described a forgotten pattern of everyday life. Once researchers knew what to look for, the evidence seemed to appear everywhere. But why would people naturally wake in the middle of the night? The answer may lie deep inside our biology. Before electricity, darkness lasted much longer than it does today. During winter, people often spent 12 or more hours indoors with little artificial light. Modern experiments have shown that when volunteers live without electric lighting for several weeks, many begin sleeping in 2 separate segments, almost exactly as historical records describe. Perhaps our ancestors weren't interrupting their sleep at all. Perhaps they were following the rhythm their bodies expected. The Industrial Revolution quietly changed everything. Factories needed workers arriving at precise times. Cities filled with gas lamps. Later came electric lights. Suddenly, night no longer meant darkness. People stayed awake longer than ever before, instead of sleeping in 2 parts. Society gradually compressed sleep into one continuous block. Efficiency replaced rhythm. The old patterns slowly disappeared. Most people never even noticed. History contains another surprising clue. Doctors from centuries ago rarely treated midnight wakefulness as a medical problem. In fact, many considered the quiet hours between first and second sleep an ideal time for reflection. Some believed the mind was unusually calm. Others thought dreams were easier to understand immediately after waking. Even married couples received curious advice. Several medieval writers suggested that the period between first and second sleep was the best time for conversation or romance. Different cultures, different beliefs, the same mysterious pause in the night. Why did this forgotten habit vanish so completely? One possibility is surprisingly simple. Technology changed faster than biology. Electric light transformed human behavior within only a few generations. Evolution works far more slowly. Our brains may still carry echoes of an older rhythm. That's why some people wake naturally around 3 in the morning. They often assume something is wrong. They check the clock. They become anxious. Ironically, the stress of worrying about being awake can make returning to sleep even harder. Centuries ago, that same moment might have felt perfectly normal. The biggest change wasn't how humans slept, it was how humans measured time. Clocks divided the night into hours, factories demanded schedules, modern life rewarded uninterrupted productivity. Sleep became something to optimize instead of something to experience. So who was the last generation to naturally live with first and second sleep? We'll probably never know. The transition happened gradually. One family kept the old habit, the next stayed awake a little later. The generation after that forgot it had ever existed. But one thing seems almost certain. The next time you wake in the middle of the night for no obvious reason, remember this: you may not be broken. You may be experiencing a rhythm that guided humanity for hundreds of generations before electric light quietly rewrote the way the world sleeps. And if something as ordinary as sleep can change so dramatically without most people noticing, imagine how many other ancient habits are still hiding in plain sight, waiting to be remembered.